Should we get started?
Yes, let's do so. I hope you got your coffee. And welcome here. It's great to see so many people in the same room again. Right. And not just any people. It's a lot of great women in tech. And maybe men in tech as well. And also welcome to everyone online. Really great to have you here and really great to be here. My name is Therese Reinhammar. I am heading the Scania Autonomous Solutions Delivery. In my role, I'm engaging with the customer that are seeking the benefits from what the technology can give them. We are leading the initiatives and are responsible to deliver it to the market. This is really where the autonomous vision is meeting the reality, and me and my team are responsible for making it happen. It's super cool, and I hope that you also will find that when we are sharing a little bit today of what we are doing. I'm also very excited to be here today with Cindi.
Yes, so thank you very much, Therese. My name is Cindi Lindsborg, and I joined Scania 2 years ago. And I joined with a mission to really accelerate Scania's transformation to embrace new technology and to embrace new business models. And I have a background from the management and IT consultancy business before joining the autonomous or the transportation business. And I really have a passion for leadership, for tech and diversity. And right now I'm heading a strategy department for the most recently created business area at Scania. We call it Mobility Solutions. And that is the business area where we actually develop and commercialize the new business models that will take Scania to the future. One of these business models is, of course, the autonomous transport business. But you've been at Scania a bit longer than I have, right?
Yeah, I do. I'm getting old.
I didn't say that.
I joined Scania in 2006. It's been 16 fantastic years so far. I've been having a lot of different roles, both international, global and international management role within logistic, supply chain, sales and marketing. My red thread has been to work with leadership and developing people, organization and businesses to perform even better. And something that has been more and more a focus is sustainability and circular business and how diversity can lead to better profitability, because you all know it does, right?
Yes.
But enough about us. Let's kick it off and go into the real stuff.
Yes. Before kicking off, I just also want to say that I am also super excited to be here today. I'm super excited to be here on stage with you, Therese. We normally have very busy calendars, so nice to spend some time together. I'm also super excited to be here, to be on stage again. It's been quite some time during COVID, right? So it's been like 3 years since I was actually on a stage. And then I'm also super excited to be here with all of you guys, because I think that technology and technology and women is actually transforming the world today. And this is the right place to be. And I'm so proud to be part of that movement. All right, so we are here to talk today about how the transport ecosystem is being rapidly disrupted by new technology. So we are here today to talk about how connectivity, electrification, and automation is actually transforming into enabling low-emission and self-driving trucks. And that is better for the society, that's better for the planet, and it's better for us and for our grandchildren, right? So exciting topic here today. To do that, we will focus on 3 topics here today. We will first of all give a short introduction to Scania, what we work with. Then we will transform into talking about the key drivers and the key trends of the autonomous transport business. And then in the end, we'll also talk about how far have we come, both within Scania, but also in the market as a general. That sound okay? Is there anyone in this room who's working with self-driving vehicles today? A couple, very good. Excellent. So super short then on the Scania intro. First of all, this slide was actually one of the reasons why I decided to join Scania in the first place. Because at Scania, we don't only have a sustainability strategy, we actually have a purpose, and the purpose is sustainability. Because Scania is operating in the transport industry, and is one of the industries that emits the most CO2 emissions. And at the same time, we see that with growing economies and growing populations, the need for transport will continue to increase. And we cannot stop transporting goods, we cannot stop transporting people without jeopardizing the economic and social wealth development in all parts of the world. But what we can do, and what Scania is committed to do, is to break the correlation between increasing demand for transport and increasing CO2 emissions. And that's the challenge that Scania has taken up on. And we do so by this. So Scania aims to drive the shift towards a sustainable transport system, creating a world of mobility that is better for business, society, and the environment. And when I saw this, I was also a bit curious, so is this just a slide, or do we actually mean business? And I was told we actually mean business. And this is one of the proof points of how much or how important this is to Scania as a company. Scania was actually the first heavy manufacturer company who signed the science-based targets. So Scania, we have committed to reduce the CO2 emissions from our operations by 50%. And more importantly, we're also committed to reducing the CO2 emissions of the rolling fleet. So from all the vehicles that we have sold previously and selling also going forward, we reduced the total emissions by 20%. And by doing this, if we achieve this, we will actually make sure that we manage to contribute to making the Paris Agreement happen. And this is quite cool. We're both really into this topic. Super short about Scania. I think this one most of you know. So Scania is selling trucks, buses, engines. It's all premium products. And we also sell services to keep those products up and running on the streets to fully functioning. And you can also summarize our business this way. So we were founded in 1891. And we've actually had more than 90 years of straight profitability. And throughout that time, we have grown into a company which is we have business in more than 100 countries. We have more than 1,500 service points throughout the world. And we also have more than 50,000 employees. And what's also good for this crowd and for people working with the autonomous part is that we have a really large R&D budget as well, so spending a lot of money on R&D. And what may not be known to everybody is that Scania is actually started out as in the train industry. So we were in the train industry for a couple of years. Then we moved into the bicycle industry. We have left both of those businesses by now. But about a decade ago, we also emphasized and went into the data business. Because if you want to develop smart transport systems, you need a lot of data. You need a lot of input, you need a lot of data. And thanks to Scania as being one of the first one out in the industry to roll out connectivity to the fleet, we actually have data in abundance. We have more than 500,000 connected vehicles at the moment, running out on the streets and running out in the world. And we use that data, we use it for R&D purposes. We also use it when a customer wants to design a new product. So we make sure we use the right data to make sure we get the best possible product for that customer. We also use the data to track our own sustainability targets. Because when you work with autonomous vehicles, you really need a lot of data. And this is helping us on the journey. And super short then on how Scania sees the world going forward. Well, we see that our future is surrounding around these three technology areas. So we see our future business being built around autonomous, connected, and electrified. And those are also the three technology areas where we're combining when we develop our self-driving trucks. So moving on to the juicy stuff in the tech.
Yes. We shouldn't be too close to each other. No? The juicy stuff will come very soon. But let's start with the basics first, making sure that we are all on the same level of what we mean with autonomy or autonomous vehicles. The Society of Automotive Engineers have identified 5 levels of autonomy, where level 0 is no support for the driver, like the old Volkswagen Beetle. Level 1 is what I would say every new personal car at least have, like a support function as a cruise control. Level 2 is where we have a combination of several supportive automation functions like an adaptive cruise control and a lane assistance. Then we come to level 3, which is more advanced technology is added on, so the vehicle could drive itself, but it needs to be a driver there taking care of what's happening around the vehicle. Level 4 and level 5 is what we mean typically when we talk about autonomous vehicles. The vehicle can drive themselves, don't need a driver in the vehicle. Number 4 is where the vehicle can drive by itself in certain predefined conditions, like you have mapped the road so it knows how the road and the environment looks like. And level 5 is a full automation where the vehicle can drive driverless anywhere. So, what will this mean then? How will it work with the autonomous vehicles? Let's start with looking at how the transport system is built up today. It's very much built up around that we have drivers, and the drivers can drive for 4.5 hours before they need to rest. And we have huge trucks, as huge as possible, to be able to fit as much goods in at the same time as possible, because the driver is quite a big part of the total transportation cost. That is why when you drive on the highway, you see a lot of logistics center and warehouses every 4 hours along the highways. But in the future, we see that the vehicle will be driven autonomously without driver. They will also be electrified, and we will have an electrification network and an infrastructure with chargers that will be automatic. Autonomous will also the unloading and loadings in ports and terminals be. And we see that in the warehouses there will be very much degree of automation and very little human interactions. We have IoT that will increase the transparency which is needed in the whole supply chain in order to have all the automation. And we also have digitalization and AI that will make it possible to have a much more efficient planning in the whole supply chain. So all in all, the future transport system will have a much higher degree of automation and digitalization and connectivity. And this means that we can reshape the whole transport system based on connectivity, electrification, and autonomy, instead of the driver's 4.5-hour drive and the human interaction. That also means that we can use vehicles in a whole other way. Maybe in the mornings they will drive kids and parents to school and work, and the same vehicle during daytime can drive goods to the supermarket, and during nighttime they can be used to transport garbage. We can also resize the vehicles. They will look different. We can resize them so that they are better fit for the exact purpose. We will have 24/7 operations, and we can have a much more efficient supply chain so that we can take away all the unnecessary warehousing and reloading, unloading, etc. And this means when you are driving in the future transport system, you will see different type of vehicle without drivers in them, of course, and you will also see less trucks during daytime in the rush hours and in the congestions, but more in the nighttime. And you will also see fewer warehouses and logistics center along the highways. This is, of course, a totally new way of looking at transports. And that is worrying for many people. But maybe we can learn there from the history. Looking back to when the combustion engine was introduced, people were worried, used to seeing transport and using transport by horses and carts. That was reliable. It was known. And people worried what would happen with the horses and what would happen with the people taking care of the horses.
And cleaning the streets after the
And
horses.
cleaning the streets. Yeah. It was a lot of shit on the streets.
What will happen to the old work?
Yeah. Well, all the worry in the world couldn't stop the driving forces that wanted to introduce the new technology. No need for brakes, no injuries. Of course, an engine could break. Maybe not a Scania engine, but another engine.
But it's quicker to repair than a broken horse.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it's just ready to go in an instant. In the end, people cared more about the reliability of the engine and the clean streets than saving the jobs for the people that had made a career out of cleaning up after the horses. And just like that, we are now facing a new revolution in transport industry. Surrounded by a fair bit of worries about changing status quo, about jobs. But we know that the driving forces are too strong. And we also know, looking into the combustion engine, where job disappears, new jobs will also come. And that happened in the Industrial Revolution. It happened in the computer age. And we know that most likely the ones that are first to embrace the inevitable are also the first one to capitalize on it. Cindi, what would you say are driving the changes?
Yes. So now we know that it will happen, right? Oh, now we're too close again. Right, so let's look into what are the key drivers for making this happen. And for anybody that works with strategy, the third thing you need to do is to really zoom out, make sure you understand the full picture, what's happening in the market, and then you zoom in again, you step right into the middle of change, and then you start making actions in all the needed directions. So from Scania, we have looked into, for the autonomous business, what are the forces driving the shift? What are the enabling factors that will make this happen? And how can we not only watch those enabling factors, but actually step out and lead those factors to accelerate the journey? We, of course, also need to always continue to look into the risks and the challenges. And what are those risks? And how can we manage those risks for our company's perspective, but also for the industry as a whole? And I think this is the really juicy stuff in working with strategy and emerging tech, because it's so complex and everything is changing at the same time, and everything needs to be paced. So I hope there's more people in the audience who find this exciting. I will now go through the different parts, because I think it's interesting to understand a bit how the market is developing and why it's developing the way it's developing. And one of the reasons looking into the enabling factors. Well, first of all, sustainability is one of the drivers for making this happen, because with the autonomous trucks, they can drive for longer hours, so they can actually reduce the speed. And they can also drive during hours when there's no congestion or traffic jam. So that way you can lower the emissions from the vehicles. Another enabling factor is the driver shortage. I think you guys have all understood and heard that there's a lack of drivers out in the world. And looking into some numbers then, only in the US markets, right now they are estimating that we're lacking 80,000 drivers. And by the end of 2030, they estimate that to be doubling. And of course, from a private perspective, that might mean that my Amazon parcel does not show up at the door the day that I wanted it. But from a business perspective, the risks are huge when you cannot get the goods that you need delivered. For Scania, that could mean that we need to stop production for 1 day, 2 days, or 3 days. We need to make sure that the transport system is up and running. Another factor, and maybe the one who is actually going to be the tipping point, is of course the cost. So when is the day when we can actually reduce the cost so much that it makes sense to drive autonomously? And one of the driving factors for reducing cost is actually the driver salaries. And I heard the other day that as a driver, for a truck driver in the outskirts of Canada, they actually make more money than the management consultants do. So the driver salaries are increasing as we see, and with that we have the global shortage. If we continue then, so if these are the things that are driving the shift, if looking into the enablement side, well, it's legislation. We need to have legislation ready to make us test the self-driving trucks in the streets. We also need to have legislation that makes us being able to sell and drive those on a larger scale. And we do foresee that the legislation is slowly developing in the right direction. And we do foresee, as soon as we can prove that the trucks are safe enough, the legislation will be there to support the scaling of the technology. Another enabler is, of course, technology itself, right? And technology is getting better and better and cheaper, and that is also needed to make this happen. Finally, challenges. Well, one of them is the safety aspect. And I think it's Google who estimates that 95% of the accidents that happen in traffic is actually due to human errors. So that means we have a pretty good possibility for the self-driving systems to outperform the humans, because the self-driving system will most likely not be on drugs, they will not fall asleep behind the wheels, and they most likely haven't had that much alcohol the day before either. So really think that this is a safety issue that can really increase the safety in the traffic. But the problem here is that there's no common set of metrics to define the safety of that truck. So what are the exact metrics that we need to fulfill to make sure that the truck is safe enough and we can actually have it to be out there, self-driving? Another thing is, of course, the data security part. So we have trucks and they have cameras and they're actually monitoring the surroundings. In the surroundings there are people. And then we have the GDPR compliance coming in. We also have, of course, the possibility of these trucks being hacked. And we cannot have self-driving trucks that can be hacked by other people, right? Or other countries even. The final one is also the challenge that we might see the most critical, and it's the public opinion. So if the public opinion is not favorable for the autonomous transport, it will never happen. The politicians are not bold enough to go beyond the public opinion. And we also know that the public opinion can shift really, really rapidly. As just with NATO in Sweden, in a couple of months, the public opinion just completely shifted. So the public opinion with autonomous transports, if there is an incident or an accident, as was the case in Arizona in 2018, when one of the self-driving trucks actually hit and killed a woman, then the public opinion can drastically change. So that's one thing that can actually stop this development quite rapidly. But just to sum it up then, so we do foresee that there is a pull from the market. People want this to happen. We also see that the legislation is there and will be there when the technology is ready. So I don't see that we foresee any hindering from making this happen rather shortly. And then, moving on then, what do we do on Scania? How far have we come? Sorry, guys. Yes.
Yeah, great. Scania has always been the driver's brand, making state-of-the-art engine and outstanding cabs. No wonder Scania is the brand the driver want to have, want to choose, want to buy, and want to drive.
One thing that actually what I learned when I joined Scania is there are quite a lot of drivers out there with a Scania tattoo because they're so proud of the trucks.
That's excellent. Today,
it's a bit strange, but yeah.
Do you want to show yours? Today, ICE engine and cabin are the performance components that are defining the OEMs. That is what we make our money on today. But looking to the picture on the right, if we see the future, if we don't have a driver, we need to rethink what a transport vehicle is and what it should be. It will be a huge engineering challenge, but it's a challenge that all our super talented engineers are really eager to take on. For the future, we see more simpler base vehicles with a self-driving system and a powerful battery. That will be what are defining the components of the OEMs and for Scania. But it will not be so much about the vehicle in the future. It will of course be there, but it will be much more around the whole ecosystem of logistics. What does that mean? Well, we have the base vehicle, but we also have an integration, and we put on sensors and radars and lidars, and we have the software, the autonomous software, which is basically the virtual driver or the robot that will drive the vehicle. To that, we also need the offboard system. The offboard system is what will tell the driver what to do. You can actually see that demonstrated in our booth upstairs. This offboard system should replace everything that the manual driver today are feeling and doing and notice around the vehicle, except, in addition to just drive. We also need the transport network, the infrastructure in place, like depots or launch pads, where we can switch trailers, where we could clean the sensors and equipment, where we could charge the vehicles or fuel them, and where we could upload data. And then we need an offboard system, a transport optimization system, where we could optimize the whole transportation assignment and the fleet. But we also take it one step further, utilizing that we are really, really good at Scania. We're in the forefront of logistic planning, and that we are combining with our transport operation, our autonomous transport operations, and taking the full responsibility of customers' supply chain. So, looking at this, in the future, Scania will be much, much more than just a vehicle manufacturer.
Which is super exciting when you work with business models, right? So, huge change coming up for the company and not only the industry.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. When we talk about autonomous, there are mainly 6 different segments that where autonomous are implemented. It's hub-to-hub, mining, people transport, hubs or logistic areas, ports. It is platooning, and it's robotaxis. At Scania, we have chosen to focus on hub-to-hub and mining. Mining is the first-to-market segment. It is a confined area, often private-owned, where you're not dependent on legislation. And it's also an area where you can separate the autonomous vehicles from other vehicles and human beings, so that you don't risk to injure any persons. And it's also lower speed, so less complexity in the technique needed. Also, an important factor is that the mining companies are already today using autonomous equipment in other areas, so they are used to it already. In the hub-to-hub segment, that is our major segment at Scania. It's the highway transports, and they're very suitable. We have big volumes with very predictable flows going on the highway from predefined destinations, so it's very suitable for autonomy. And if we look at this from a customer perspective then, why do the customer want to have autonomous transports? Well, starting with mining again. For mining, it's really a sustainability and a cost perspective that is most important. We think at Scania that we are selling heavy trucks. They are really big. But in the mining world, they are small trucks. They are today working with big yellow machines, and they are 8 to 10 times bigger than a heavy truck. So by introducing a normal Scania truck or a truck, they could electrify the vehicles, and by that they can also reach zero emission mine, which is a very, very important step for basically all the mining companies. It's also, with introducing smaller trucks, it's also a less complex infrastructure, and they can utilize the minerals that they're breaking in a better way. But for it to work, it has to be driverless. Looking into the hub-to-hub, sustainability is also a very important step, as you talked about earlier, Cindi. We can utilize the vehicles 24/7, and we can go in lower speeds, so the emissions will be lower. And green transport will be a demand from both customers, but also from decision makers in the future. And the other major thing in the hub-to-hub segment for customer, it is the driver shortages. And it is just an escalating problem. So we have our direction and our focus, but where are we today at Scania? Well, if you have been driving on the highway south of Stockholm, chances are that you have already been in traffic with a Scania autonomous truck.
Anybody recognize the truck? No?
As first brand out, we started to run autonomously with a safety driver, of course, in the vehicle 1.5 years ago. And we just recently got a new permit from Transportstyrelsen to also do local roads. So now we are going daily from our manufacturing in Södertälje to Nyköping, all the way autonomously, driving around a lot of roundabouts. And it works perfectly fine. Yeah,
And
it's
we were
really
actually-
cool. I love to sit in it.
We're actually the first one in Europe to get the highway driver's license. And we're also very, very proud of that.
Yeah, good. See, time is running here. This is how we are going to implement it. We're now in the development and the early piloting phase. We will then go in from 2026 something. We will start to commercialize, and we see by the end of the decade that's when we will really realize the value and see a lot of autonomous trucks being a big part of the logistics system. Mining then. It was a completely new area for me when I started working with autonomous system, and I think it's the more I get into it, the more interesting and sexy it gets. You will now see a footage from our test facility. So this is our R&D department that has filmed while they were doing some testing. And I think this is, I'm really, really proud of this. You see the blue blinking, that's autonomous, no driver in the vehicle. Very high incline, and this is, we do have material, but this is a lot of air that is dumped from the vehicle. And looking into the time plan for mining then, we are following the same steps, but due to the confined areas, it's happening much, much sooner. Good, Cindi. Would you like to give us a view on how this would work on global level?
I would love to.
Maybe we should throw it to each other next time.
All right, but to understand when it's going to happen on a global level, it's also good to look into who are the key players. Because Scania traditionally is a brand who, does almost everything ourselves. We produce the trucks, we sell the trucks, and we don't really trust other partners to do, the important activities we do ourselves. But for this type of business, all the truck manufacturers need to reach out, both to the tech players in the autonomous driving area, and also the logistics players. Because all of these three need to work together to identify the best routes and to make the technology happen. So it's a great shift from how the dynamics are going to be between the different players of the markets. And then quickly, just to run through, how do I get back?
Maybe not that quick.
No, exactly, not that quick. This was quick enough. Super short, just looking into where it's going to happen. I think you can summarize where it's going to happen like the race is on. US is racing against China, and Europe is slightly behind, but we're really trying to get the technology out. And what's interesting also in these three regions where it's going to happen is also that the dynamics of each of the markets is quite different. So if we start with US, we see that here the market is really driven by venture money. So it's the tech players and the venture money who drives the acceleration of having the technology out. We also see that the business case is quite good because the salaries are high in the US, the truck salaries. In Europe, on the other hand, there is actually the truck manufacturers who drives to get the technology out. We also see in Europe we have an issue, somewhat at least, with the legislation being a bit slower because safety is such a big issue and concern for all different countries. In China, on the other hand, then it's actually the government itself who drives and pushes the technology. So there's even a national plan for how to get this up and running. And if you would guess, who do you think will be the first one out to have like a commercialized vehicle up and running? China, yes. We foresee that at a larger scale, maybe 2025, it could already start to happen there. US, maybe 26-ish, and then maybe Europe, maybe 2027. But it also depends on the numbers and so on. But we see that they are in the forefront, US is behind, and then Europe, we are in the very behind. But it's coming in a couple of years. Is there anything you want to add before I throw the stick to you?
No, hand it over. Thank you. So to summarize and wrap this up, our focus is to be niche leaders in the segment hub-to-hub and mining, and that should happen within 3 years. But looking outside of Scania, autonomous is an inevitable and radical shift for the transport industry. It will affect the transport system. It will affect the technique and the vehicles. It will affect the business models, and it will affect the society at large. And it's happening now. And the progressing is accelerating. The driving forces are growing and are more strong and more relevant as we move forward. And the risk and the hinders are overcome step by step and day by day. And that's the thought we want to leave you with today. It's happening, without a doubt. So let's embrace it. Let's be part of it. Let's shape it together. Or, as we say in Scania words, let's drive the shift together. Thank you. I think it's 14:43. We have time for a few questions.
One or two? Yeah. And then I think people want coffee, right?
Yes.
So, this is really cool.
We like it too.
Hmm? Yeah, so the question was, first, it's a cool area to work within. I just have to repeat that. But you were saying, as a UX designer, which area or which customer would you design for? I would say that we have, for example, colleagues in the monter today, Caroline and Tina are there. They're working with our offboard system. And they are colleagues with the ones that are designing our offboard system, which is a user interface towards customer or the transport operator.
So you could be designing for people working in the control tower, managing all the different vehicles out there.
Yeah, good summary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
One final question?
Yeah.
Yes.
With that, have a big demand on electricity.
Yes.
Do you invest in making electricity or other companies, or how are you expecting others to provide that later on?
No, we are taking a bigger and bigger step towards that. And for instance, we have one joint venture with regards to charging. We're also looking into going even further in that ecosystem. So we understand we need to be a player also in that area.
Good.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you so much for listening
Thank you.
in. All right.